I don't know if this happens to you too, but there are certain images, certain products that I immediately connect to. When I have something like this in my hands, I don't want to let it go. I want to keep using it over and over. And so in today's video, I'm going to share with you the creative process behind creating 5 different cards from one stencil. And I hope that this is going to inspire you to give love to the supplies you love. One recent example of a product that really spoke to me is the Waffle Flower Fall For You stamp and stencil set. This is a set of layering stencils with a coordinating stamp set, and there is something about it that is just so cozy and warm. I really love it. So in order to break the ice, I started by creating a fall themed project. This way I didn't have to think about creative ways to use it, but I just used it for the first time, got familiar with it, and created my first card. I chose to use distress oxides and I went for a teal, orange and yellow color palette. The first color I picked was mustard seed, which is a nice and warm yellow, and then for the second layer I used peacock feathers, which is probably my favorite blue in the distress oxide range. For the third layer in my first card, I decided to use the new Distress Oxide in Crackling Campfire, which honestly is everything a fall red color should be. I also decided to use a brown ink rather than a black ink to do my stamping, and this is going to contribute even more to the fall vibe of the card. For every card I made, I started by die cutting them in pano with the Waffle Flower A2 layers, and this left me with a 5 by 3 3/4 inches pano. For the card bases, I use papers in these scrapbook.com paper pads. They come in several packs with different color palettes and they are already cut at an A2 size. For the greetings, I used this Essential Sentiment set by Ranger, which is a great basic set with a nice and clean font, and I combined it with word dies from a couple of sets by scrapbook.com. For this particular card, I made sure that the card base and the sentiment match the warm color palette and the fall vibes. And since I associate fall with cozy time, snuggling up on the sofa, I decided that this image by My Favorite Things was just perfect to go with this card. Now that I had played with my stencil a little bit and I had figured it out, I was ready to take the next step and to move on and do something a little bit different with it. Since Christmas and winter are approaching, I thought I would go for a winter card, and the first thing I did is the simplest one you can do. I just changed the color palette. For this one, I used Spun Sugar, Shaded Lilac and Speckled Egg, and don't worry about being true to nature with your art. That's the magic of creativity. We get to make our own rules, and in my world today, there are lilac winter leaves. A couple of glittery die-cut snowflakes and a cute snowman was just what this card needed to really set the frosty winter mood, and here we are, 2 cards done and ready for the next. Again, with this concept of not being too caught up in trying to be realistic with my card, I decided that my leaves were going to be holly leaves. This also gave me an excuse to try the new Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxides, so bonus points for that. And then I completed the color palette with Mauve Lawn and Twisted Citron. After die cutting the pano, I decided that I wanted to set the Christmas mood even more, so I created some red berries using Nouveau drops. This needed to dry overnight before I could complete my card with a red card base, a cute puppy in a Santa hat, and my Christmas wishes sentiment. So at this point I was a little bit in the Christmas mood, and the next thing that came to mind were cookies. And actually the shape of the leaves, if you forget for a second that these are leaves, is just perfect for cookies. So I used some warm browns in the Distress Oxide range, and these are Ground Espresso, Tea Dye and Antique Linen. I also added details with a white gel pen to create the effect of frosting, and then I completed the card with a mama and a baby bear and my sentiment, of course. And do you see the pattern here? We start from something that for us feels like the obvious way to use the supply, and then we make small changes. The first one was changing the color palette, and then from there it's all a matter of mental associations. So from one idea to the next. We started from a fall card, we worked our way to cookies, and now we are going to move on to the next step, which is sour candy. I used bright colors for this one and I chose picked raspberry, peacock feathers and spun sugar. To reproduce the sugar coating on my favorite gummy candy, I did some heat embossing with sparkle embossing powder, and then I also decided to add even more sparkle and texture using Sticko's glitter gel. And please tell me I'm not alone here, I'm absolutely obsessed with gummy candy and Haribos are my weakness. I finished off the card with a cute image and a sentiment, and if you want to learn more about the creative uses of supplies, you should check out this video right here, because there I share some really easy tips to use seasonal stamps all year around. I'll catch you guys there.